Before HB 1802 was signed into law, deadly force could not legally be used to prevent a property crime. Unless a person is justified in using deadly force as otherwise provided by law, a person is not justified in using deadly force to prevent or terminate the other's trespass on real estate or unlawful interference with personal property. Meaning, it was not lawful to use deadly force to stop someone from trespassing on your property unless it was justified elsewhere in the law. Neither was it lawful to use deadly force to stop someone from committing property crime. There had to be another threat recognized by the Tennessee law for the use of deadly force to be legally justified. Now, under HB 1802, subsection C was replaced with, except as provided in subdivision C2, a person is justified in using deadly force against another if the person would be justified in using force against another under subsection A or B. There are several criteria necessary to escalate from the use of force to the use of deadly force under HB 1802. First, the person must be justified in using force under subsection A or B, which I've already covered. When and to the degree the person reasonably believes deadly force is immediately necessary to prevent or terminate the other's actual or attempted trespass, arson, damage to property, including damage to livestock, burglary, theft, robbery, or aggravated cruelty to animals. Now deadly force can be used, but only if it's immediately necessary to stop an actual or attempted trespass, arson, or damage to property or livestock. The question is, when is it reasonable to believe deadly force is necessary to prevent these things? Notice what deadly force can only be used to protect. Let's start with trespass, arson, and damage to property. Is there a scenario where these actions could reasonably be responded to with deadly force? Since arson could threaten other people, that makes sense. But what about trespass or property damage? Now, I could see a situation where someone who is trespassing on their property or damaging a property could be considered enough of a threat to warrant deadly force if the trespasser is armed, acting aggressively, or threatens you. If the actions of the person would lead them to be a threat, like in a carjacking, that would warrant the threat or use of deadly force. If the property being damaged is protecting young children, that could warrant deadly force. Notice that damaging livestock and aggravated cruelty to animals could also be justifications for the use of deadly force. Livestock is more than someone's property. It is how they make a living. If someone were hurting or trapping in a way that endangered livestock, that could lead not only to the loss of the animals, but to the food on the owner's table. But again, the force must be immediately necessary. No finding the person later and using force to stop future threats. There are other limitations to when deadly force can be used. The person reasonably believes the property cannot be protected or the other's actions terminated by any other means, or the use of force other than deadly force to protect or terminate the other's actions would expose a person or a third party to a risk of death or serious bodily injury. First, the use of deadly force must be the only way to protect the property. It's not like you can automatically escalate to deadly force. There has to be no other option. Or the use of deadly force was necessary to protect a third party from death or serious bodily injury. This third party language pretty much mirrors existing use of force laws as I understand them. There's one other limitation to the use of deadly force. A person is not justified in using deadly force against another individual under this section if the individual is facing away from the person. The idea is you cannot use deadly force against someone who is retreating. For it to be reasonable to use lethal force, they must be engaged in the crime, not leaving. Neither can you sneak up behind them and use deadly force.